Just going to keep saying it for the next minute. That if you're just hopping on, we're going to just take about a minute for everybody to get on, get comfortable. Oh, that minute just turned. So I guess we're going to actually start presenting. So welcome in everybody to today's parent info session, where we're going to talk about building safety and independence for transition age youth. We know that this can be such a confusing time for some parents, and they feel like they probably need to study a handbook on what to do when their students get out of school. So our goal for this time together is just help ease some of those concerns and talk about some of the things that sometimes we slightly forget about in the chaos of everything. So today's session is going to be 30 minutes of basic information, and then 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. You're welcome to drop questions into the chat while I'm presenting. I might not answer them in real time, but I will answer them at the very, very end when we have a few minutes to decompress and chat some of them out. Let me start by just simply introducing myself, because I'll be the only voice you're really hearing for the next 30 minutes or so. My name is Robin, and I'm just a program specialist with the ARCA PA in any PA, but also Central PA. I kind of in both sections. I'm right on that county line. I come to you with a different background, a lot of times working with younger students, but I have over 15 years. I should probably update that number here soon, of working with students in inclusive classrooms. So let's get into the topic now. So what are life skills? These are teaching real life skills to people with disabilities, and it's essential for building that independence, that confidence, and that dignity. We often hear of life skills classrooms. We're shooting for the same goals. We're just kind of having it in that home setting. Every individual deserves the opportunity to develop the abilities needed to navigate that daily life and participate in their communities. By focusing on that practical skill development, we can help create pathways towards greater self-sufficiency and personal growth. Empowering people in this way also strengthens the families, the workplaces, and society as a whole. Together, we can work to foster inclusive environments where everyone has the tools and support to thrive. So that's what life skills are. We're working on those tools to help everyone thrive. We can't talk about going into the topic we're going to with that safety and independence without talking about also dignity of risk. So if we want children to become as independent and resilient as possible, we need to learn to be comfortable with them having the dignity of risk. This means that we give the youth the opportunity to have new experiences, which might lead to taking risks. Dignity of risk on the slide there is defined as letting people try things, make choices, even make mistakes, because that's how everyone learns, grows, and becomes more independent. It's the idea that keeping someone too safe can limit their life. Allowing reasonable risks with support as needed shows respect for their anatomy and humanity. The dignity of risk is the idea that all people, including those with disabilities, have the right to take that risk. And being allowed to take risks is a big part of personal growth, self-esteem, quality of life for all of us. So let's get into that transition plan. Then after this, I'm going to give you a lot of examples of kinds of things that we're talking about with these safety, teaching safety and all those lines. So first off, transition begins planning when the student turns 14 in Pennsylvania. But transition planning can start as young as kindergarten. It might not always be in the IEP that young, but we can work on teaching some of these skills, or we should be working on teaching some of these skills at those younger ages and all up through transition. The IEP, that's a required transition plan with measurable post-secondary goals, needs to be in the IEP. The IEP team should include community safety as part of that transition planning. And we're going to give you examples of community safety later on. I keep saying we're going to give you examples because we're going to give you a lot. The process, this should always be student-centered. With the student invited to those IEP meetings, student-centered is so important because this is our individuals' futures that we're working to build. We want them to be a part of building their future, making those plans, and having those choices. And then the services, these should be coordinated and result-focused services. Transition services for students with disabilities are mandated. They're coordinated activities, and they start at age 14 through 16, but Pennsylvania is that 14, designated to facilitate the shift from school to adult life, including education, employment, independent living. These individualized education programs or your IEP services cover things like career planning, job training, independent living skills, and post-secondary education supports. So my slide's a little crooked there. Let's go into this. So teaching safety. When we're teaching safety to individuals with disabilities, it's most effective when the instruction is practical, it's supportive, and it's empowering. Safety skills aren't learned all at once. They're built through intentional teaching strategies that promote understanding, confidence, and independence. Using role playing in real life scenarios, such as practicing how to call for help, allows individuals to learn by doing and prepares them for real life situations. Things like visual supports can be helpful. This would include pictures, checklists, step by step guides, and make information clearer and more accessible for different learning styles. We can teach individuals through repetition and constant routines and help reinforce skills over time, turning safe behaviors into habits rather than relying on supervision. Supported decision making encourages individuals to actively participate in choices that affect their safety, building self-confidence and self-advocacy. Other things we could do is looking into things like peer mentoring and group learning. This provides opportunities for social modeling, shared experiences, and encouragement, making safety education more engaging and relatable. Together, these strategies create a supportive learning environment where people with disabilities can develop the skills they need to stay safe, make informed decisions, and live more independent lives. So I kept saying I'm going to give you a bunch of examples, and here we are. So as I get into this next section, I want to give you a quick heads up. You're about to see a lot of examples that we're talking about for in that transition plan, but also things we can just do as parents at home to help ensure our students' safety and help them build that future. And honestly, each one of these topics I'm about to do a quick overview of could be its own independent 30-minute webinar. Because of that, we're only going to do that really quick overview of each. But if there's a topic that stands out, you want to find more information, you would like more resources, you would like a deeper dive if possible, please make note of it. And let us know in the chat, or feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to provide those resources if we can, have that conversation. And if we have time at the end, we will, deep dive into some of these if you are interested in so in that 15-minute Q&A we have at the very end of this session. So let's get into these. So teaching these essential safety skills empowers individuals to protect themselves, make those informed decisions, and confidently navigate their communities. Things like understanding boundaries helps individuals recognize appropriate versus inappropriate touch and gives them the confidence to assertively say no, and supporting personal safety and their self-advocacy. Things like stranger awareness teaches how to identify safe people to approach for help and how to respond to strangers, both in person and online, reducing the risk of unsafe situations. Things like emergency response skills ensures individuals know how to call 911 or local emergency services. Remembering that key personal information like their address and communicate their needs or provide basic first aid during emergencies. Things like ID cards filled out in the glove box of the car. I learned this week or last week, I guess it was, that when EMTs come into your house, if they were to, take you out because something happened and you are incapable of communicating, they typically look on your refrigerator for a list of your medications. It's a good place to keep them. So it's kind of in a general area where they would be seen. You can also keep ID cards in a backpack or a purse that your kids can refer to if there's ever an emergency. There's also apps out there that can instantly connect you and your child to a location with a simple click. I push this button, it says, I'm in trouble, I'm lost, I need my parents. Those are things that we can be looking at. And if we practice using these things, so that way in a time of panic, they're normal. We remember them because in a time of panic, when our brain is so overloaded, we've practiced that ID card is in the glove box so many times that I know to walk to the glove box. Even if I am unable to communicate what exactly I'm going there for, I know it's there because I have practiced. And then safe transportation skills. Promoting independence and safety when traveling. This includes using public transportation responsibly, teaching our individuals how to check to make sure the Uber driver is the one that they're also seeing on the app. And if it's not, and the vehicle's not the same, knowing to say no thanks and not getting in that vehicle. Also, things like safety with pedestrian safety, developing traveling skills for navigating that community with confidence. Moving on to home and daily living safety, teaching everyday safety skills. And this is something you're going to be teaching at home. It's a little hard to teach some of these things in school, although school does a good job teaching the basis of these skills. But this helps individuals stay healthy and it avoids preventable injuries and helps us make safe choices. Things like teaching kitchen safety in our home, teaching us how to properly handle knives, appliances, hot surfaces, and reducing the risk of burns, cuts, and household accidents. I was recently sitting in a short session with a bunch of transition age students, and they were playing a game of Jeopardy, and one of the topics was safety skills. And a picture popped up on the screen of a pan sitting on a stove with the handle obviously pushed, like hanging out to where you'd be standing if you were cooking. So you'd be bumping this handle. And when asking the group of students what they felt was wrong with that picture, majority of them said the handle's hot. It's going to be hot. The oil might splash you. And they were pointing out everything except the safety of that handle and how it needs to be either over the stove, or to the side where you're not going to bump it. But teaching those small things in the moment and having that conversation and explaining why it is, it's going to help with our individuals knowing how to then cook their own pierogies or whatever safely. Things like fire safety, preparing our I keep saying our students, but it's our children, to respond quickly and calmly in emergencies. Understanding what smoke detectors are, the sounds they make. You can practice with smoke detectors in your home just like they do in school. Practicing fire drills in school once a month. Our kids are practicing those fire drills, but at home we kind of don't practice them. You might say once or twice, if there's ever an emergency, we meet at this place in the yard, or we meet at the neighbor's house, or, we just get out. But are we practicing with that loud beeping sound where we're getting out? Okay, what if the back door is blocked? Do we have an option B to get out the front door and then get around to the backyard to our meeting spot? Things that we can practice. And these can all be life-saving actions. Also, stop, drop, and roll. We teach that so much in those kindergarten, first, second grade years. By the time we're in high school, maybe we remember it and we might remember it in the moment, but just being able to repeat these things, practicing that escape plan, always knowing two ways out of the room or the house, and staying low to the ground if there's smoke, practicing crawling up or down those steps if needed, or practicing crawling through that living room to stay below the smoke, and not calling 911 until we're safely outside in those situations. Things like medication safety, ensuring medications are identified, stored, and taken correctly. This reinforces the importance of never sharing medications, help prevent misuse and medical emergencies. Things we can be teaching our kids at home are like reading the label before taking the medicine, using a pill organizer to keep track of daily doses. That way we don't think, did I take that this morning? And then maybe accidentally take it a second time. Storing medication in the proper places and out of reach of children. Just because our students who are 14, 15, 16 years old are able to take those meds themselves and regulate themselves, we want to make sure it's not out of their reach or it is out of the reach of their little brother or sister. And then also asking the doctor or pharmacist before mixing medications and allowing our students to know who they can talk to about medications. It's always a hard topic to say one day as a parent, we're not going to be here, but there's days that we're not going to be here. So knowing that our student knows they can call the pharmacist to ask questions about that medication is just an important thing to make sure our students are being taught as we're teaching them these life skills. So some more of those skills, that social and emotional independence. Teaching self-advocacy and life skills helps individuals build confidence, independence, and healthy relationships. Self-advocacy empowers individuals to clearly and respectfully express their needs, preferences, and boundaries, ensuring their voices are heard and respected. Things like telling a teacher, a supervisor, or a caregiver, I need more time to finish this. Asking for clarification when instructions are confusing. I try to share a lot of stories when I'm presenting to make this more real. And one of the stories I really not enjoy sharing, because that's the wrong word, but I find value in sharing is I worked with a student a few years ago who did not understand when written instruction. So when you're giving her a test and there's that paragraph at the top that tells you what you have to do on the test, that was something she did not, she just couldn't read it and then do those actions. That was not how she learned best. And because she felt uncomfortable saying that the instructions were confusing or that she didn't really understand them, she regularly failed tests. She regularly failed assignments, wasn't turning assignments in, and she risked failing school for the year. We had to have those deep conversations on it's okay to say you don't understand, because that is an uncomfortable thing to have to express. the first few times you express it until you get cozy in using your words and standing up for yourself. Being able to say no to things that are uncomfortable or unsafe. Saying it's okay to say no, even if that's going to hurt the other people's feelings. That's still okay. Requesting accommodation, such as written instruction instead of verbal ones. We could be teaching our kiddos things like decision making, support safe and thoughtful choices in daily routines by helping individuals understand their options. Practice that decision making. They do a lot of this at school. They are giving choices quite regularly, but practicing it in other settings too. And recognize consequences. Life skills like choosing appropriate clothing based on the weather, comparing prices before making a purchase, deciding how to spend free time. Should we do our homework first, then relax? Or do I want to relax first and risk do my homework second and running out of time? Thinking through the consequences when we do this. If we are not finishing our responsibilities, but then we're going out with friends, what might happen after we get back with our friends? What will we then have to do instead of relaxing? Things like relationship skills. This helps individuals identify healthy versus unhealthy relationships while learning consent, communication, and mutual respect. Things we can teach our kiddos here are using kind and respectful language during disagreements, asking permission before borrowing someone's belongings, recognizing those red flags, just someone pressuring them to keep secrets, and also defining what secrets are okay to keep. It's okay to keep some secrets. There are little silly secrets that teens have, but knowing what is and is not okay to keep. Maintaining personal boundaries in friendships and dating relationships. We can also be teaching our students at home or our kids at home coping skills, like providing tools for managing stress, recognizing emotions. And you can do recognize emotions with those simple sentence starters. Hey, today I feel blank. Today I feel happy. Why? Because I'm here talking with all of you. Something along those lines. And knowing when and how to ask for help. When and how to ask for help. Is this something I can help myself with, or do I need to outreach to an adult or a peer? Is this something I can get from a friend help? And then we're going to talk about those examples, taking deep breaths when we're overwhelmed with that anxiety, journaling about our feelings, taking a short walk or listening to calming music when we need to reset. Being able to teach that self-regulation can be so essential for our young ones, especially when we hit the real world that becomes way more stressful than the school world that they're currently living in. And then that financial and community independence. Teaching practical life skills helps individuals navigate their communities independently and make safe, informed choices. Things like money management builds financial independence by teaching how to handle cash, use debit cards. Recently, I've listened to students try to define what the difference between a debit card and a credit card is. And a lot of them didn't know. One student said that the credit card is the government's money and the debit card is your money. And I laughed pretty hard at that, but also how to budget responsibly and how to recognize scams and fraud. That last one is so important because so many individuals with disabilities are the targets of scams and fraud. So making sure that we can teach them. You don't click that link that comes to you in a text message from an unknown number or in your email, so on and so forth. And there's so many trainings that you can find online that really be able to recognize these, but also I'm sure you can learn them in your phone on real time. I could probably pull up my cell phone right now, open my text and find at least 3 different scam or fraud texts within my messages. Things like community access, supporting confidence in public spaces by learning how to shop, how to order food, how to appropriately seek assistance from store staff or community members. Walking up to that employee at Walmart or Lowe's, specifically Lowe's, I feel like is way more intimidating, and saying, hey, where can I find, or I'm having trouble with, or can you give me a price on? Those kind of things. It's uncomfortable sometimes to talk to strangers, especially when we're also teaching stranger danger on the other side of things. And then job readiness. This helps prepare individuals for success in the workplace by teaching safety awareness, effective communication, and self-advocacy on the job. Together, these skills promote independence, safety, and that meaningful participation in community and the workforce. And we often talk in the educational setting about something called hidden curriculum, which is where we aren't taught to we aren't taught to sit in the classroom and be quiet and raise our hands when we want to talk. I mean, we are kind of told it once or twice, but we're not physically walked through how to do it. It's just something that we kind of learn naturally. But some of these things aren't going to be learned naturally. And maybe these job readiness skills are some of those things that we need to have lessons on in order to really gain that information. And then digital and online independence. So teaching digital safety and technology skills helps individuals participate confidently and responsibly in today's online world, which is all online and often quite scary and overwhelming. So teaching things about online communication helps individuals recognize cyberbullying. It helps protect their privacy and practice respectful and appropriate online behavior. Things like digital literacy builds confidence in using technology by teaching how to safely and effectively use devices, apps, and assistive technology tools. And then things like online transactions, how to safely purchase items. Because remember, before we were teaching you how to look for the best deal of something you want to purchase, but there are a lot of scam companies out there. So we want to talk about how to safely purchase, how to manage online accounts, reduce those risks of fraud, scams, which ultimately lead to financial loss. And together we work on this safe digital engagement, and it comes with independence and responsible use of technology, which is always a goal for our students, our kids. Um, so let's wrap that all up. I know you've learned a lot, I hope, in this session so far. But you probably learned that you still have a lot to learn, and that's okay because we all still have a lot to learn. Each and every day we are building, we are learning, we are growing, especially when it comes to understanding our kiddos and their disabilities, because both of those things are hard things to learn. Kiddos are unpredictable, and disabilities come with a whole pile of things we need to know. So when we're wrapping it up, we want to talk about we want to focus on teaching life skills that are not just for school. It's great to have those school life skills, but when we turn 18 or 22, whatever way we're going to go, we're then no longer in school. So setting us up for success when those supports fade, because when school supports fade, we don't always gain those supports back. A lot of supports will stay in schools. The IEP planning should have those transition goals, and should is in capital letters for a reason. It should have those transition goals. There are lots of everyday tasks that can be lessons. I mentioned earlier about cooking on the stove. I point because my stove's over there as if you guys can see it. But those everyday lessons of cooking on the stove, washing knives in the sink. There's so many things that we do in our house from day to day. Every time you set off that smoke detector cooking bacon, maybe you have a moment to practice a fire drill. But if not, you can just set the smoke detector up by pushing a button, and you can still practice that fire drill. And just a reminder, you are a parent, and being a parent in today's world is so challenging, but you are doing great. And if you heard all these examples and were like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm not doing enough, or other things, you are. You are doing great. Being a parent is hard. Setting up a little person for their future is hard. All of this is a hard task, and it's a lot for you to take on, but you're doing a great job. So we're going to go share our Padlet then. We do have a Padlet that does have a lot of our information from our parent info sessions we've done so far, past and future. This is a live document. We're constantly updating it. It's constantly growing. It's constantly doing all of those things. It is a full of resources. So you can scan that QR code, but Anthony also dropped the link in the chat. So feel free to click that link, that window pop open, come back to me, and then you could review that later, but save it. And if you lose that Padlet, feel free to contact us. We will gladly email it back to you. But we also drop it in every single parent info session, so you have that information. Moving on, we're going to talk just about a little training opportunity that we have for you guys here. If you enjoy our parent info sessions, we also have something coming up in the summer called Includicon. Includicon is a 3 half days, so it runs in the mornings till about like lunchtime from August 11th through 13th. It is virtual, it is online. You can attend in your pajamas with your camera off. You could attend any way that you feel cozy, but it's 3 days of just keynote speakers. It's a little bit of, chats from us here at the ARC, and we're just sharing information. You can also scan that QR code or click on the link in the chat to learn more about our Includicon, and that link in the chat will be getting updated as we finish finalizing our speakers and our whole entire setup for the days of Includicon. but it's a good time. We also have a little IncludeCon a newsletter that you can sign up to be able to get into those IncludeCon updates. And that takes us to the very last slide, which is just asking if anyone has questions.